Hello and welcome. If you're in council leadership, you know you're responsible for the safety of public electrical infrastructure. But what are your actual legal obligations? What can you delegate? And more importantly, what can't you? In this explainer, we're going to cut right through the legal jargon and give you the clear, direct answers you need. Let's jump right in.
We've structured this to be as clear as possible, breaking it down into 6 key parts. We'll kick off with your core legal position, the absolute basics. Then we'll look at the laws you operate under. After that, we'll get into the specifics of your duties, the systems you need for compliance, and yes, your personal liability as an officer. Finally, we'll circle back to that crucial question: what can and what absolutely cannot be delegated?
All right, let's start with a scenario. Imagine a public streetlight fails and there's an incident. Someone gets hurt. So who is legally on the hook? Is it the contractor who did the last repair, the engineer who signed off on the design, or is it someone else? Just keep that question in the back of your mind as we move forward.
Okay, Section 1. Let's establish the single most important legal fact that everything else is built on. This is the foundation of your core legal position.
Now, the law uses its own language, and one of the most critical terms you'll hear is PCBU, which stands for a person conducting a business or undertaking. Put simply, this is the legal entity, the organization itself, that holds the primary, number 1, duty of care for safety.
So, here is the absolute bottom line, with no room for confusion. Under the law, your council is a PCBU. It's not an option, it's a legal designation. And with that designation comes a very specific and very significant set of responsibilities.
And this is a huge one. It's probably the most common point of misunderstanding. You can, of course, delegate the work. You can hire contractors to install lights, to do maintenance, to run inspections. But what you cannot do is delegate your legal responsibility. As the PCBU and the owner of the asset, the buck always stops with the council.
So we've established what you are, a PCBU. But where do all these duties and rules actually come from? Let's take a look at the legal framework that defines them.
The best way to think about this is like a pyramid. At the very top, you've got the X, the big laws that set out the broad principles and duties. Step down from that and you have the regulations, which start to add more specific rules. Below that are the codes of practice, which offer practical, how-to guidance. And right at the base, the foundation of it all, you have the Australian standards, which contain all the technical specifications.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand this. Australian standards are not just good ideas or best practice suggestions. In the eyes of the law, they are the yardstick. If something goes wrong, your council's actions will be measured against these standards to see if you did what was required. They are the evidence of your compliance.
Okay, we've got the legal theory down. Now, let's make it real. How do these duties apply to the actual physical assets your council is the custodian for every single day?
Your primary duty of care is laid out right here in Section 30 of the Act. The key phrase to focus on is, so far as is reasonably practicable. Now, that isn't a loophole. It means you must take every reasonable step you can to ensure electrical safety for everyone. That's your workers, your contractors, and crucially, the general public who have uncontrolled 24/7 access to this infrastructure.
And just to be crystal clear, this duty of care covers the whole shebang. We're talking about every single streetlight, every light along a park pathway, all your public electrical pillars and switchboards, and the critical earthing and protection systems that make them safe. If you own it, you have a duty to it.
And your responsibility isn't a one-time event, like at installation. No, it's a continuous duty that stretches across the entire life of every asset. From the second you accept a design, through its construction, its entire operational life, its maintenance, and right up until the day it's decommissioned, that legal duty stays firmly with the council.
Okay, so knowing your duties is one thing, but from a governance standpoint, you have to be able to demonstrate that you're meeting them, and that requires solid, documented systems.
The law is very prescriptive about this. It mandates a formal 5-step risk management process. You have to identify hazards, assess them, control them, and then review those controls. But pay close attention to that last step, document. Because if a decision or a process isn't written down, then in a courtroom, it's like it never happened. Documentation is your proof.
Now, for these systems to be legally defensible, you need a clear separation of duties. Think of it like checks and balances. One group, asset ownership, sets the standards and holds the final accountability. Another group, service delivery, does the actual work. And a third independent function, assurance and audit, verifies that the work is meeting the standards. This structure is critical for robust, defensible governance.
So far, we've focused on the council as a legal entity, but now we need to shift our focus and talk about the duties that fall on senior leaders as individuals.
The Act defines an officer as anyone who takes part in making decisions that affect a substantial part of the organization. As you can see, that's a pretty broad definition. If you're a CEO, a director, or a senior executive at a council, then this section is speaking directly to you.
As an officer, you have personal due diligence duties. You have to understand the risks and you have to ensure the right resources and processes are in place. But look at that final point. The law requires you to verify that those resources and processes are being used. Verify is an active word. It means you can't just assume. You have to actively check, ask questions, and seek assurance that the systems are working as they should be.
All right, let's pull all this together. We're going to wrap up by reinforcing the core, non-negotiable message of this entire explainer. Let's be perfectly clear about what your counsel cannot do. You cannot outsource your legal compliance to a contractor. You cannot turn a blind eye to known risks or defects. You cannot use "I'm not an engineer" as a defense. And you cannot operate without properly documented and implemented safety systems. These are the inescapable truths of your role.
So let's circle back to that failed streetlight. The question isn't just about who is accountable after the fact. The much more important question for you as a leader is this: are your governance systems, your documented processes, and your assurance frameworks robust enough to withstand regulatory scrutiny right now? Are you prepared? Because answering that question proactively is what good governance and true public safety is all about.